There's a specific kind of, um, I guess, arrogance we all have when it comes to modern medicine.
Oh, yeah.
I think it comes from living in such a digital age. We have this subconscious belief that because, we have smartphones that can recognize our faces and AI that can write poetry, that medical treatment must be equally clean.
Right. We view the body as hardware, and medicine is the software patch.
Exactly.
You find the bug, you download the fix, you reboot, and you're done. It should be clean, binary, efficient.
We expect the Star Trek version of healing. You wave a little wand, a light blinks, and the trauma is just gone. But today, we are looking at a source that just completely dismantles that entire fantasy.
It really does.
We're doing a deep dive into a text titled Sacrificing the Periphery, and specifically a section with the deceptively pretty name, The Light Show.
The Light Show. It sounds like something you'd buy tickets for at a planetarium.
Or maybe a Pink Floyd concert, yeah.
Something beautiful and passive.
Exactly. It sounds like something you just sit back and watch.
Yeah.
But the reality lurking behind that title is one of the most brutal, paradoxical, and I think fascinating things I've ever read about the human body. We're talking about a procedure called Pan-Retinal Photocoagulation, PRP.
And you really shouldn't let that dry medical acronym fool you. This isn't just about eyes. I mean, it is, but it's also a story about the economics of survival.
The economics of survival.
It's about a biological lifeboat, and it forces us and you to ask a question that most of us are probably too scared to answer. If you had to destroy a part of yourself to survive, which part would you choose?
That's the hook for me. It's the sacrifice. It's right there in the title. We are so used to medicine being about restoration, getting back to 100%.
Getting back to normal.
But this is about calculating what percentage you can afford to lose. It's about the fix actually being a form of controlled destruction.
It's a crisis management story. And it forces us to look at the body not as some perfect temple, but as a desperate vessel just trying to stay afloat in a storm.
Right.
And to really understand it, we can't just look at anatomical diagrams. That won't do it. We have to look at the person in the chair. And the source introduces us to a woman named Teresa.
Teresa the teacher.
Which is a very specific and I think a very important detail. Why do you think the text emphasizes her profession right at the start?
Think about a teacher's day. I mean, it's almost entirely visual, right?
Yeah.
She's scanning the classroom for the kids who's passing notes.
Mm-hmm.
She's reading 30 different essays with that sloppy handwriting.
Mm-hmm.
She's looking at the whiteboard, then back at the students, changing focus constantly. Her eyes aren't just organs. They are her tools.
They're her livelihood.
Exactly. So the stakes are set immediately. If Teresa loses her vision, she doesn't just lose the ability to, see a sunset. She loses her identity. She loses her ability to function in her own world.
So when she's told she needs this laser treatment, the desperation is already there. She needs this to work, no matter what.
And like most of us, she has a mental image of what laser treatment actually means.
Mm-hmm.
The source material spends a lot of time on this gap, the gap between what Teresa expects and what actually happens to her.
It's the gap between the marketing of medicine and the practice of it.
It really is.
The Star Wars effect.
It's so pervasive, isn't it? I mean, I grew up on it. You hear laser, and what do you picture?
You picture a beam of pure light. It's neon green or red. It makes that satisfying pew-pew sound we all know.
Right.
But more importantly, what does a sci-fi laser represent conceptually? It represents sterility, efficiency.
Definitely.
It cauterizes instantly. It's supposedly painless. It's the ultimate clean weapon or tool.
It feels immaterial.
Yeah.
Light doesn't have weight. Light doesn't have sharp edges. So you assume the treatment will be like lying on a beach. You feel a little warmth, maybe a little hum, and then you sit up and your vision is perfect.
You don't imagine blood. You don't imagine sweat.
And you certainly don't imagine pain.
That is the seductive myth of technology. We think high-tech means low pain. We think it means no grit. But the source material, it just shatters that within the first paragraph.
Boy, it really does.
It takes that Star Wars expectation and drags it into a very gritty, very analog reality.
I have to read the specific description from the text because it made me physically recoil a little. It's describing the sensation of the procedure.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't say it burned. It doesn't say it stung. It says, and I'm quoting, "It feels like someone is flicking her forehead with a rubber band."
That line, it's just a masterclass in medical communication.
It is. Why does that specific image stick with you so much? What makes it so effective?
Because it's so insulting,
Stickling.
Yeah. A rubber band isn't high-tech. It's not a laser beam. It's annoying. It's primitive. But more than that, think about the physics of a rubber band snap. It's percussive. It's a shock wave. It's not a continuous burn. It's a thwack.
A thwack.
It implies impact, a tiny, sharp impact.
It's so visceral. I'm sitting here touching my forehead right now just thinking about it. It's that sharp, sudden sting that makes you jump.
And the location is crucial, too. The text mentions the forehead, but the laser is firing into the eye, deep inside the eye, into the retina.
Yeah, that part confused me at first. Why does her forehead hurt if the laser is inside her eyeball? I mean, is the doctor missing?
No, not at all. The doctor is hitting the target perfectly. This is a phenomenon called referred pain.
Okay.
See, the retina itself, the wallpaper at the back of your eye, it doesn't have pain receptors for touch or heat in the way your skin does. If you could somehow touch your own retina, you wouldn't feel it in the same way.
That's numb.
To touch, yes. But the energy from the laser is incredibly intense, and it hits the nerves surrounding the eye, specifically what are called the ciliary nerves. And those nerves, they scream out.
And the brain gets confused.
The brain gets very, very confused. The ciliary nerves feed into the trigeminal nerve, which is this massive nerve highway that runs right across your forehead, your brow, and behind your eye.
So it's all connected.
All connected. And when that intense signal from the laser hits that highway, the brain just doesn't know how to interpret it. So it maps the pain to the nearest heavy nerve cluster it recognizes, the forehead.
So your brain is literally hallucinating a rubber band attack on your forehead.
Yeah.
Because it can't process the trauma that's happening deep inside the eye.
That's it, exactly. It interprets the internal shock as an external blow. A headache being punched into you is how one patient described it to me once.
Wow.
It feels like a physical assault, not a sterile medical procedure.
That is genuinely terrifying.
Yes.
And the text notes the repetition of it. It's not one flick. It says flash, flash, flash.
It's the rhythm of endurance. A typical PRP session isn't one shot. It can be hundreds, sometimes thousands of these little burns over multiple sessions.
Thousands.
Oh, yes. So imagine sitting in that chair, head strapped into a frame so you absolutely cannot move, your eyelids held open with speculum.
Okay, that is giving me serious Clockwork Orange vibes right there.
It is a remarkably similar setup visually. You cannot close your eye. And then you have to endure that snap, snap, snap hundreds and hundreds of times.
So it's an accumulation of these little shocks.
Right. The text describes the whole thing as annoying, which I think is a massive understatement. It's an accumulation of trauma. The first 10 snaps might be okay, you brace for it, but the 100th, the 500th, it just wears down your psychological defenses.
And Teresa, the patient, she just has to sit there. She can't flinch. She can't say stop for a second.
She has to suppress her most basic primal instinct. When something comes at your eye, what does millions of years of evolution tell you to do?
Blink, turn away, protect your face, duck, anything.
Right, you protect the head. And she has to override all of that.
Yeah.
She has to override millions of years of survival instinct and consciously lean into the weapon.
Wow.
That is the hidden heroism of the patient here. It is not a passive cure. It's an active endurance test. She is participating in her own salvation by refusing to move while someone, for all intents and purposes, hurts her.
So, okay, we've established that this is not Star Wars. Not even close. This is a rubber band torture session. The question is, why? Why would anyone agree to this? Why would a doctor inflict this?
To answer that, we have to leave the surface, the forehead. We have to shrink down and actually enter the eye itself. We have to look at the anatomy of a crisis.
The source describes the state of Teresa's eye with a very disturbing word. It says the tissue is starving.
The starving eye. It's a perfect description of a biological state called ischemia.
Ischemia.
Okay.
Let's break that down. We know the eye needs oxygen, like any part of the body.
Yeah.
But why is it starving, and why specifically the peripheral retina?
Okay, so let's imagine the retina as a massive, bustling city. The macula, the very center, that's downtown.
Okay.
That's where the high-rises are. That's where all the action is. That's your high-definition 4K vision. It's what you're using to read, to recognize faces, to thread a needle.
So the macula is Manhattan. Got it.
Right. But surrounding downtown, you have the sprawling suburbs and then the countryside. That's the periphery. And it is huge. It covers most of the back of the eye.
And it's not as detailed.
Not nearly. It's more like your low-res security camera. It's where your night vision lives and your motion detection. It tells you something is coming from the side.
And in this crisis, in Teresa's eye, the supply lines to this entire city have been cut.
The highways are blocked. Usually this happens because of something like diabetes, which damages the tiny blood vessels, the delivery trucks.
Oh.
So the blood, which carries the oxygen, it just can't get to the tissue. Now, here is the kicker. The retina has one of the highest metabolic rates in the entire human body.
Really, more than the brain.
Per gram of tissue, it's right up there. It is a high-performance engine.
It's just hungry all the time.
It consumes oxygen at a ferocious rate. It burns energy just to stay on even when you're in total darkness with your eyes closed. So when the blood supply drops even a little, it doesn't just get a little hungry, it begins to suffocate immediately.
So the delivery trucks stop coming. The city is running out of food. It's running out of air.
And when living tissue starves, it doesn't just quietly fade away, it panics. The text says the retina is screaming for oxygen.
That's such a violent image. A silent scream happening inside your own eye.
It is silent to Teresa. She doesn't hear it. But chemically, it is a siren blaring at full volume. And the source identifies the specific molecule that is doing the screaming, VEGF.
VEGF.
Vascular endothelial growth factor.
That sounds like a comic book villain. Dr. VEGF.
And in this context, it absolutely acts like one. But here's the tragic irony of the whole situation. VEGF is actually the body trying to help. It's a survival mechanism gone horribly wrong.
How so? It sounds like it's the problem.
Well, when the cells are starving, they release VEGF as a distress signal. The message is simple. We are dying down here. Build more roads. Build more blood vessels so we can get oxygen. It is a desperate, panic request for new infrastructure.
That sounds logical. I mean, if you're starving, you ask for food. If you need blood, you build more vessels. Why is that a problem?
Because the eye is a closed system. It's a tiny, delicate sphere filled with clear jelly. You can't just throw up shoddy construction projects overnight without massive consequences.
And these new blood vessels are shoddy.
They're not just shoddy, they're garbage. They are rushed, they're weak, they're leaky, they're fragile. Imagine trying to plumb a high-rise building with paper straws.
They just fall apart.
They burst. They bleed into the clear jelly of the eye. They grow in the wrong places, and they pull on the retina, causing it to detach from the back wall.
So the scream for help, it actually calls down destruction. The attempt to fix the starvation is what causes the eye to fill with blood and go blind.
Exactly. The scream is what sinks the ship. The VEGF levels rise, the chaos spreads, and the eye moves from starving to dying. The very thing trying to save the eye, the growth factor, becomes the agent of its destruction.
That is just a cruel biological joke.
Evolution is messy. That mechanism works great if you get a scraped knee. In the closed, delicate environment of the eye, it's catastrophic.
So the doctor looks at this situation. They see the starvation. They can, chemically hear the scream. And they know they can't just pump more oxygen in. The vessels are ruined. They can't increase the supply.
And this is the fundamental rule of economics and biology, right? If you can't increase supply,
you have to decrease demand.
You have to.
And this brings us to the next section, the fix the logic of sacrifice. Because the solution isn't to feed the hungry tissue. The solution is to execute it.
It's brutal, brutal math. The laser isn't healing the tissue. It is killing it. The source says the laser turns off parts of the peripheral retina. That is a very gentle euphemism.
A very polite way of saying it burns them?
It burns them. It kills the photoreceptors. It turns living, hungry city blocks into inert scar tissue.
Because dead tissue doesn't eat.
And dead tissue doesn't scream. By burning away the huge oxygen-demanding periphery, you stop the production of VEGF. You silence the alarm.
You're burning the village to save the castle.
That is exactly what it is. You are looking at the map of the eye and saying, look, I cannot save all of you. There isn't enough oxygen to go around. So I am going to sacrifice the suburbs, the periphery, to make sure that downtown, the macula, survives.
I have to be honest, that just feels wrong. It feels like giving up.
Yeah.
We go to doctors to save us, not to selectively destroy us.
And that is why this topic is so important for us to talk about. We have to reframe our definition of saving. In this case, saving means prioritizing.
Right.
The source identifies the beneficiary of this sacrifice very clearly. It says the oxygen is being conserved for the central vision,
The MVP.
the most valuable player. The body, and by extension the doctor, makes a cold, hard calculation. It decides that central vision is more important than peripheral vision. If there's only enough oxygen for one, the macula gets it.
And the periphery gets sacrificed.
It's purely utilitarian. It's triage on a microscopic scale.
And it's fascinating because we like to think of medicine as saving everything. But you're saying if you try to save everything here, you actually lose everything.
That's the paradox. If you let the periphery keep screaming, the VEGF levels keep rising, the bad blood vessels keep growing and bursting, and the whole eye goes down. The result is total blindness, so you have to sacrifice the edges to protect the center.
That leads us perfectly into, I think, the most important part of this whole discussion, the core analogy. Because the source text gives us the perfect metaphor to understand this really difficult choice. It says, imagine a lifeboat.
This is one of the most powerful analogies in all of medical education. It clarifies the stakes almost instantly.
So let's map this out for everyone. The lifeboat is the eye.
Correct. It's the vessel that keeps you safe. It's floating in the middle of a dark, dangerous ocean.
And the situation is that the boat is too heavy and sinking.
That sinking represents the progression toward total blindness. The VEGF, the hemorrhaging, the chaos caused by the starvation, that's the water rushing over the sides, the boat is going down, the margin for error is zero.
And now we have the contents of the boat. The source makes a distinction between two things, the passengers and the luggage.
Okay, so who are the passengers?
The text says the passengers represent the central vision.
The human lives on board. These are the critical, irreplaceable elements. And let's be specific about what this passenger actually does for you. This is Teresa's ability to read a textbook.
Right.
This is her ability to see the expression on a student's face from across the room. This is your ability to drive a car, to sign a check, to see your own face in the mirror.
These are the things that make life, livable in the way we know it.
Exactly. You cannot lose the passengers. If you lose the passengers, the entire mission fails. The rescue is pointless.
And then there's the luggage.
The luggage, which represents the peripheral vision.
Okay.
Now, let's be fair to luggage. Luggage is useful.
Of course.
It has your clothes, it has your supplies, your food. And peripheral vision is important. It helps you see something moving out of the corner of your eye. It helps you walk down a crowded hallway without bumping into the wall. You want your luggage.
But is it alive?
No. And is it worth dying for?
No.
Absolutely not.
So the boat is sinking. It's way too heavy. The captain, who is the doctor in this case, has to make an incredibly hard choice. The source says, to save the passengers, central vision, you have to throw some heavy luggage, peripheral vision, overboard.
Imagine that scene. You're in the middle of a storm. The waves are crashing. The side of the boat, the gunnels are dipping below the waterline. You look at the passengers, your central vision huddled together in fear, and then you look at the heavy trunks, your peripheral retina.
And you have a split second to decide.
A split second, if you keep the luggage, everyone drowns. The boat sinks. Total blindness.
So you start heaving the trunks over the side. Splash, splash.
Splash! And every time you throw a trunk overboard, every single time the laser zaps a spot of retina, you are lightening the load. You are reducing the metabolic demand. The boat rises a little bit higher out of the water.
But let's be really clear about what throwing luggage overboard means here. The source says the laser sacrifices some side vision. That luggage is gone. It's at the bottom of the ocean. You do not get it back.
That's the finality aspect, and it's so important to understand. When you laser the retina, that spot is scar tissue now. It doesn't see anymore. It can't. You are deliberately creating small, permanent blind spots in the periphery.
You're narrowing the field of view.
You're narrowing the field of view, or you might be reducing night vision, potentially. You are permanently altering the fundamental structure of the eye.
It seems so. Barbaric. To deliberately create blind spots to help someone see.
It feels barbaric if you look at it in isolation, but then you have to look at the alternative.
The alternative is the boat sinks completely.
The source puts it very bluntly. The laser prevents the vessel from sinking completely. It stops total blindness. So the blind spots the laser creates are the price of admission for keeping the rest of the vision. They're the cost of saving the passengers.
So it's a rescue mission, but it still feels like a loss.
It is a loss, and that is what's so profound about this deep dive. We have to accept that sometimes the best possible medical outcome involves loss. It involves damage.
We have to grieve the luggage.
We have to grieve the luggage to celebrate the survival of the passengers. It's a complex, emotional, and physical reality.
I just wonder how Teresa feels about all that. She's sitting in the chair, feeling the rubber band flicks. Is she thinking about the luggage? Is she thinking about the passengers?
I think she's probably just focused on the headache.
Probably, yeah.
But deep down, yes. On some level, she is trusting the captain of the boat, the doctor, to make that call. She's trusting that the passengers are worth saving. She's trading a pristine but dying retina for a scarred one that works.
Speaking of the headache and the aftermath, let's move into the practical side of this. What happens when the procedure is over? The source doesn't just leave us in the middle of the ocean. It brings us back to the parking lot. So what happens when Teresa gets up and leaves the machine?
Right, the procedure's over, the laser stops firing, the rubber band flicks finally cease. But the experience isn't done. The source describes the visual state as dazzled.
Dazzled. That sounds almost magical, but I'm guessing it's not.
No, not in this context, not at all. Think about when someone takes a photo of you with a really bright flash in a dark room. You know that purple-green blotch you have in your vision afterward?
Yeah, and you can't really see past it. You're blinking, trying to clear it away.
Now imagine that flash went off 500 times in a row, directly into your retina. The photoreceptors, your rods and cones, they're chemically stunned.
Stunned.
They contain pigments that react to light, and the laser has effectively bleached them all at once. They're just completely overwhelmed. So the source compares it to the after effect of a camera flash, and it says this lasts for a few hours.
A few hours. So you can't see clearly. You're effectively walking around in a kind of purple fog.
That's a good way to put it.
And this leads to probably the most practical, real-world piece of advice in the whole text. Plan for a ride home.
It seems so obvious, but it is absolutely critical. You are legally and physically unable to drive. You are dazzled. Your pupils are also likely still dilated from the exam beforehand, which means everything is blurry and painfully bright.
So you're vulnerable.
You're vulnerable. You need a support system. You need a ride.
It's interesting to me that the medical text includes this very logistical detail. It's not just biology, it's life management.
It's good medicine. It acknowledges that the patient is a whole person who has to go back out into the world. You can't just zap them and kick them out the door without a plan for how they'll get home safely.
And then there's the pain. The source says, you might have a headache.
Which makes perfect sense. You've just been flicked in the forehead with a rubber band 500 times.
Right.
The nerves are agitated. The muscles around the eye are probably in spasm from trying to flinch for an hour.
And the recommendation is surprisingly simple. Take Tylenol beforehand.
If your doctor approves, of course, that's the important caveat. But the logic here is something called preemptive analgesia.
Preemptive analgesia. That sounds fancy.
It just means don't wait for the pain to arrive. It's much harder to stop a pain signal once it's already raging on that neural highway. It's much easier to put up a roadblock before the cars even start moving.
You're getting ahead of it.
You're getting ahead of it. By taking a painkiller before the procedure, you are raising your pain threshold. You're dampening the nerves before the assault even begins. It can make a huge difference.
It's actionable. It empowers the patient. You aren't just a passive victim of the laser. You can take steps to make it more bearable. You can break a driver. You can take a pill. You can wear dark sunglasses.
It turns a scary, abstract medical event into a manageable checklist. It gives Teresa some agency back in a situation where she feels pretty powerless.
So we've gone from the Star Wars fantasy to the rubber band reality. We've seen the starving retina screaming for help. We've watched the luggage get thrown off the sinking lifeboat. And now we're sitting in the passenger seat of a car, vision dazzled, heading home with a mild headache, but with our sight saved.
That is the narrative arc. It is a journey through fear, biology, sacrifice, and ultimately survival.
Okay, let's start to wrap this up. This concept of sacrificing the periphery, it really, really sticks with you.
It does. It's a metaphor for so many things in life, really. But in the context of the eye, it highlights the body's incredible resilience, but also its stark limitations.
We're not infinite.
Not at all. We have finite resources. And sometimes the body gets into a kind of trouble that it can't solve without paying a pretty steep price.
The so what here feels really personal. It changes how I view medical treatment. We always want the magic pill. We want the Star Wars laser that fixes everything perfectly with no side effects. But sometimes the win is just staying in the game.
Exactly. The lifeboat analogy teaches us what I sometimes like to call savage prioritization.
Savage prioritization. I like that.
It's about being ruthless about what actually matters. Because if everything is a priority, then nothing is a priority. If you try to save every single rod and cone in the peripheral retina, you lose the macula. You lose the person's functional sight.
So you have to make the hard choice.
You have to be willing to lose a little to save a lot. It's the core of all emergency medicine, just on a different scale.
And that final image, the dazzled vision, it's temporary. The brain is just amazing, isn't it?
It really is. This is the silver lining to the whole story.
Because even though we've thrown the luggage overboard, even though we now have these permanent new blind spots in our peripheral vision, do we even notice them?
Often we don't, and that's the quiet miracle of neuroplasticity. The brain is an interpolation engine.
What do you mean by that?
It takes the data it has, the passengers, and it just fills in the gaps. It stitches the reality together so that Teresa can go back to her classroom and not feel like she's looking at the world through a broken window. Her brain creates a seamless picture from the information it's still receiving.
So the brain covers up the sacrifice.
It does. It honors the sacrifice by focusing on what remains. It focuses on the passengers. It doesn't dwell on the luggage that's gone.
The passengers survive to see another day. And that is the miracle. Not perfection, but survival.
Survival is its own kind of victory. Sometimes it's the only victory available.
So here's a final thought for you to carry with you today. We talked about the eye, but think about your own lifeboats. Think about the luggage you're holding onto in your own life that might be weighing you down. What are the things, projects, worries, obligations that are the peripheral vision? They're useful, sure, but maybe they aren't essential.
And what's the central vision?
Exactly. What is the central vision that you absolutely must save, no matter what? Sometimes, to keep the boat afloat, you have to be brave enough to throw the luggage overboard. Keep those passengers safe, everyone. Thanks for listening to this deep dive.
Take